So yes, we think we have some center backs, obviously, that can hold it down, and then we have these incredible wing backs. Anthony Robinson probably would prefer to play a little higher up. He can get up and down. You got Timo Weah who can do the same. And I wonder what kind of dynamic that gives our team. And obviously, we'd have to put all the other positions in place to make it work, and which player profiles fit the best in terms of that particular system. But yeah, and even with Serginho Dest was healthy, I was still asking for a back three just to see what that would look like. And it's interesting to see Gregg talk about it. Brian, your thoughts on his thoughts ultimately?
Yeah, it makes sense from what I know of Gregg. I mean, he loves the ability of having flexibility, and this thought process makes sense. And there's also an understanding with this group. They've been together long enough where they've trained in a 3-back system. They've trained in a 4-back flat system. They've trained with the wingers coming inside, the wing backs coming inside when you're building out. So that flexibility side is definitely there. The knowledge and the execution at the international level, now that's a whole nother scenario. I'd much rather see it in friendlies if we're going to start doing this and changing up than going into a major competition and trying something new. So that part, it will be interesting to see with these two friendlies, especially against two really good teams. That might give Gregg a real clear understanding of whether or not the players are capable of playing those positions and whether or not they change formation.
Now, Chuck, you said 3-4-3.
Yeah.
What do you got for us? Because well, tell me your team then. If we're in a 3-4-3, I'm kind of curious how everybody lines up.
Yeah. So the three in the back, I think by far ahead of the next couple options that center backs are Cameron Carter-Vickers, Tim Ream, and Chris Richards. I think those would be the three. Easy. Left, Anthony Robinson. Now on the right, this is where you can get creative. So yeah, one that comes to mind is Timothy Weah and his pace and getting up and down. Wes McKinney's played there and has played well for Juve when he's played there because he just figures out a way to make an impact. And so I think you're flirting between those two players if you're going to go there. Tyler Adams has to be on the pitch. We saw his influence. The only question is, how fit is he? How much can he give you? Is it one thing where you maybe start Weston in that right wing spot and Tyler there, and then when Tyler has to be subbed, you move Weston there? I'm just thinking about different options. And then you go in, the other person with that midfielder is going to be, if it's Weston and Tyler, or Tyler in the middle and Weston on the right, then you'd play with Yunus Musa. If it's not, then it'd be Tyler and Weston there. Then the three, Christian, Haji, Balogun. So you're leaving Gio out in this instance.
Yeah, I was going to say, you leave Gio out there. I'd almost humor me here for a second. You could have a back three, and I liked your back three that you said. You have your wing backs. I put Timo Weah on the right and Anthony Robinson on the left. Then you could play a box in midfield. So you'd have inverted wingers. You'd almost have 2 6s, just so everybody can visualize it. 2 6s and 2 10s. And then whoever you elect to be your 9, which we have Balogun starting. Your 10s would be Pulisic, and I think you could go Reyna. He's just more tucked in centrally. And then you have Tyler. And then maybe instead of that second 6, it's more of like an 8. So it could be a Weston there. That would be pretty kick-ass team.
That sounds awesome going forward, right? Now, how are we going to defend? Where you got to make sure that you're shifting. Gio is going to have to do a lot of work on the right-hand side. If you're going to press, if you're going to sit back in and drop your line really deep, that might work. But I agree. Going forward, that sounds like a fun group to watch defensively. I'm
talking about against Bolivia and Panama here.
You gotta think of like, all right, what's the best formation that suits your best players? And in Christian Pulisic, what's the formation that's going to suit him? Because I don't see him being one of the strikers in a 2-striker system in a 3-5-2. And then what the whole problem with our strikers is they haven't had service, I had support. So Gio Reyna is the only player who can breathe that bridge from midfield to our forward, right? So what system will Gio Reyna flourish in? And
I think the system's a 3-5-2, and it's basically Christian and Gio in the center of the park, right? With Tyler sitting behind. But then what are you gonna do with your other players? So you're gonna have to put Weston out wide, right? If you're gonna play Weston. That means no Timothy Weah getting up and down. Now Weston, he's got a great engine. He's excellent with the ball. He's got a physicality, but he's not the pacey guy who's going to get past the player with pace. He can break down players individually for sure. And then you get Anthony Robinson on the left-hand side, and so now you're taking out Eunice, or you're taking out somebody in that central midfield, and you're asking a whole heck of a lot defensively for Tyler Adams. But that is a way you can put both Christian and Gio on the field.
See, I like that. And then I'm like, same thing. Attacking, love it. Defensively, oh,
right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh Lord, this is it's tough, and which then makes you revert back to a 4-3-3, right? Because you're like, okay, we don't have to add another center back, so we can take a center back off to keep one of our where our strength is, our midfield. So you're playing, with like we said, Tyler with Weston and Gio in front of him, and then Christian, Haji, Balogun, or Christian.
You can modify that in so many different
Sargent,
ways. Right?
Balogun, Pepe. You could go any of those three, and on the left, you figure out, who that is, or it's got to be that way.
The nice thing about that, Charlie, the nice thing about that is against teams where you're going to have a lot of possession. Chris Richards had tons of pace. Whether who you're playing next to him, if it's Tim, then you probably have to be a little bit more aware, depending on how the other team's shaped up. If it's one forward, it's a little easier, right? But Gregg has shown he's not afraid to go man to man in the back. So if we have tons of possession, he'll just push the outside backs up higher. We all know what Anthony Robinson brings and his willingness to get forward and back. And then it's about who's going to play that right-hand side. He touched on a little bit. And those options, I think, is what he's probably working through as far as a 4-back system to a 3-back system, what works best. They're definitely working on in training. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a surprise in one of these two friendlies.
I think what's interesting with the back three, or if you have the two wing backs, especially ones that are well-versed in playing outside back for their club teams, is that you basically are a fluid back four based on where the ball is. So I guess my question is, if Timo Weah and Anthony Robinson are our wing backs, if the ball goes up high, let's say to the opposing left back, instead of bringing Gio Reyna, I love, I'm getting soccer nerd with everybody here, but instead of having Gio Reyna leave central to go make that pressure, Timo Weah can be the first one to address the ball, and then everybody else shifts accordingly, which would force Chris Richards to be a little bit more of the right back. Then you have CCV and Tim Ream as the center backs, and then Anthony Robinson just drops in to give us a little bit more of that balance that I think we're looking for at the left back. So you're almost, at times, could play a back five, but you're really more of a fluid back four. And then when we're attacking and playing on the front foot, then we're really in a back three, potentially, back three.
But we're getting out here, but you can't do that if you see so many teams overload a side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
So you won't be able to push it up. And so this is where I know we're geeking out, like you said.
No, I love this. This is my favorite part.
This is where scouting matters, where understanding your opponent and understanding your strengths of not only your team, but the individuals in the team. So